The reason why I personally have a problem with brown or black people talking about unity amongst brown and black people is because it's literally impossible for a people, in this particular case, us, Mexican people, brown people, it is impossible for us to come together with black people because we are inherently and culturally racist. Our culture is very anti-black. How can we try to convince you about brown and black unity when the reality is just a surface? It's a surface thing. Meaning, can we convince you to join us in helping us systemically somehow? That's what brown and black unity has always meant between us.
Every time America is in trouble, every time her back is against the wall, who do they call?
You talk about black rights, you talk about Native Americans, you talk about racism, you talk about all these things, and I think, in my opinion, it's a way to hijack the suffering that other communities face.
There's a long tradition of black folk who have stood up and spoken out against the occupation of Palestine and spoken for the liberation and self-determination of the Palestinian people.
This is what we are faced with.
Every time America is in trouble, black folk come to the rescue. We are the cavalry.
I'm amazed of how many people from the black community are telling me to go back to Mexico, telling Mexicans to go back to Mexico because we're illegal and it's a crime. In the past, black people needed Mexicans. Right now, Mexicans need you guys.
We will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came.
And in the future, you never know because things change. Sometimes maybe the white people are gonna need us, maybe the black people are gonna need us. You don't know, because God give us things, give us blessings, but He can take them away so fast.
As far as the unity between us browns and blacks, I think it could be a powerful thing if it does happen. I honestly, in my opinion, I think we'd be unstoppable. But, there's always that one knucklehead, that one idiot.
Is there a black and brown coalition? Not really. At least not of any substantive value that could be identified as the normal operating conditions of black and brown. But then again, the jury is still out on what exactly brown is supposed to be.
Big Brown!
It seems as though it is disproportionately used to reference certain individuals who identify as Latino, as well as certain individuals who are East Indian, as well as certain individuals who may be from the Middle East. But whatever brown is, it is being sold as the struggle buddy of black society.
They went through the same struggle as young black kids that didn't have a voice. They didn't have a voice. You know what I'm saying? So they all blended together. Black and Latinos always blended together. You know what I'm saying? They went through the same struggle.
This same sentiment appears to be what fuels the plea for black American solidarity with Palestine, who apparently also falls under the category of brown. The historic horrors endured by black Americans is insinuated as the linchpin that binds cross-cultural solidarity.
Palestinians took to social media to show solidarity with black communities, as well as sharing protest tactics.
And we started getting tweets from Ramola, and they were like, run toward the wind. Wrap this shirt around your eyes as a kind of makeshift gas mask.
So because black Americans have endured trauma, it is insinuated that black Americans should find solidarity with others based on the fact that they too face trauma. How strong of a coalition of solidarity can be reasonably expected when the so-called solidarity is only based on the idea of struggle and trauma? What is the overarching sentiment pertaining to black and Palestinian solidarity after Palestinians have immigrated to the United States and are no longer under the threat posed to them in Gaza? Is there a concerted effort by Palestinians to align with foundational black Americans? Or is it more common to find Palestinians setting up shop in black neighborhoods, relegating the relationship only to commerce, where Black Americans patronize Palestinian establishments such as corner stores and whatnot? Is there a concerted effort by the majority of Palestinians to align with struggling Black people when they come to America and start doing good for themselves? Do they build in the Black communities that they use to enrich themselves?
You go to Detroit, they own every gas station, every damn liquor store. You understand what I'm saying? And I didn't check their ass many a time. I didn't call them talking crazy to children, women, our Black women and shit, and I checked their ass immediately. Like, man, don't you be talking to our children like this. You see, you sit your ass up in our community. You benefit 100%. You don't put no money off into the community.
And this is not an indictment on all Palestinian people, because I'm sure that there are some that are genuine. However, history has shown that solidarity will be short-lived when struggle and trauma is the foundation of the coalition, because eventually converging interests collide and competition arises after the initial battle has been won. The American Civil War is the perfect example of short-lived solidarity between so-called white America and foundational Black Americans. Black Americans helped the white Union Army defeat the white Confederacy and were summarily left to suffer in the hands of Jim Crow in the aftermath of the Civil War, while many presidents stood by watching and doing nothing. This was Black America's payment for their patriotism. Solidarity on Monday, burn down Tulsa, Oklahoma, and lynch you on Tuesday. This is not merely conjecture. This is a matter of the indisputable historical record as to how it has ended for Black Americans when the bonds of solidarity are formed merely out of kindred trauma. Now, I am of the belief that unity is achieved at the point of converging in common interests, and that the strength of that unity will lie heavily on the compounding of those converging interests. So if the common interest is love, then the solidarity will strengthen as the love strengthens. But when the common interest is struggle and trauma, then there will be less interest in the reparative measures of the ones with whom you seek solidarity. In fact, the less they struggle, the more at risk of the bond being broken between the two of you. Such bonds promote competition over camaraderie, when trauma is at the core.
The ones that were really woke, in the true sense of the word, we've been saying there was no Black and brown coalition, no Black and Latino unity. We knew that. Y'all, for whatever reason, thought otherwise.
The Latino community, the Hispanic community, overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump.
I feel very offended by this attack on immigrants, and especially because the majority of them are Latin immigrants who look just like me, who could be my cousin, who could be my aunt, my uncle, my nephews. It's insulting and demeaning to our whole race as a people.
When it comes to solidarity, one of the issues is dishonesty about problematic cultural practices that are so deeply embedded in a culture that it is often practiced without even realizing it. Actor John Leguizamo, who is of Colombian descent, classified Latino as a race, which it is not. He also unwittingly hinted of a deeply embedded problematic cultural caste system that has been largely an impediment towards substantive solidarity between so-called Latinos.
Especially because the majority of them are Latin immigrants who look just like me.
He has a particular affinity for those who look like him, which may be why so many people are unaware of the existence of dark-skinned Latinos in these particular countries who have Negroid features. But in an effort to curtail attention to his made-up race called Latino, in the name of solidarity, he is willing to rob foundational Black Americans of their history and tie himself to Mexican history because Colombia and Mexico happen to have the same colonizer.
Latin people, we're the largest ethnic group in America, the oldest ethnic group. We built this country, we built this country, we built this country.
He boldly claims the credit for building the United States when his history is in another country on another continent. I believe he is aware of the historical efforts to rob foundational Black Americans of their historic contributions to the United States, but in the name of a PR campaign, he will say that he built the country. But which of his direct ancestors fought in the Revolutionary War? Which of his direct ancestors fought the Civil War? In fact, if his common point of Latino identity is Spain and the Spanish, then need I remind him that it was Spain who fought against the United States in the Spanish-American War? Need I remind him that the foundational Black Americans, to whom he attempted to rob the credit from, were instrumental in the war, helping Cuba gain their independence? It would help if he were to learn about the Buffalo Soldiers, who fought alongside white Americans in the war, which is also how Puerto Rico became part of the United States in the war's aftermath. But his lack of historical accuracy speaks of a self-serving agenda that has been the antithesis of any level of solidarity between the so-called Black and Brown. He doesn't seem to care about the truth. He seems only to care about garnering attention for those who especially look like him. Now, it doesn't mean that he's racist, but it certainly bespeaks of a particular brand of willful ignorance.
What is this fatjoe stuff about?
These rumors were made by radical Black racists.
Hip-hop was created by Blacks and Latinos half and half. That is a blatant lie.
These rumors were made by radical Black racists.
Who are these guys?
You want me to say their name? We're gonna give them too much clout.
I mean,
the FBA, Foundational Black Authority, whoever the
Foundational Black America.
Whoever these broke niggas is.
I've been looking online. I seen fatjoe had something to say.
Black racist.
Where people in the FBA are against what he said. I don't know who fatjoe thinks he is, but do you know where your roots come from? Where everybody's roots come from?
See, fatjoe.
Africa.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah. He knows that.
When you talk about Santeria, that came from the motherland, Africa. Sometimes Latinos might even identify themselves with African and Black culture more than Black people.
He knows that. He knows that. But at the end of the day, you know, it goes down to Dr. Claud Anderson's definition of racism.
The worst kind of racism is the racism that pretends that unequals are equals. And that's what they've done to you. They got this whole new concept called a colorblind society. And what colorblind society means, let's be blind to Black folk, pretend we don't see them.
Latin people, we built this country.
His definition of racism is the competition for wealth and resources between groups of people. Groups of people, groups of people, groups of people, groups of people, groups of people.
We will never be able to have any sort of coalition, not a true one. It's always going to be surfacey, and it's always going to be about using one another. As long as there is internalized racism, colorism comes into play, and anti-Blackness comes into play. And, you know, ironically, you know, I do these videos, and I always talk and address the anti-Blackness in our culture. And most of the people that have a problem with the things that I talk about regarding the subject matter are Mexican people. Bro, why are you making us look bad? You see? I'm making us look bad because I'm forcing us to confront the anti-Blackness. But then you are a hypocrite going out there and trying to convince Black people about coming together with us. You cannot come together with the people that you are anti.
We don't want to sign to no Blacks. You know what I'm saying?
Is that because of the prison shit? It's not a racist thing? Help me understand, because when you say that out loud, it sounds crazy.
It's because like this. It's like this. It's like, I go to jail, I rock with my race.
Mm-hmm.
I eat with my race. I do things with my race. So it's like I'm here. I conduct business. I do things with my race. You know, like we integrate and whatnot. But why would I have somebody in charge of my music career if I'm already programmed a certain way? I'm already institutionalized a certain way. Why would I? You get what I'm saying? That's just my mindset. So I'm like, no, we wouldn't do that.
What the other people are doing is they're on code with their community. When it's time for them to form like Voltron and click up and be like, we are whatever we are, whether it's Jamaican, Puerto Rico, wherever they from, they do it.
Right.
We don't do it.
When conversations of delineation arise, there seems to be a particular chastisement reserved for those who are classified as foundational Black Americans. The Black and Brown Coalition, if we are honest, is disproportionately championed as a coalition between foundational Black Americans and Mexicans. Cubans, Puerto Ricans, and other groups of people came later, after the United States was already established. But in an effort to create an illusion of a monolithic people, the fact that you spoke Spanish was sold as an ethnic identity, despite the ethnic and racial disparities occurring within the given society. People would often use the argument that race was a social construct in order to deflect from the larger conversation that while it may have been a social construct, it is still used as a system of disenfranchisement, and whether you call yourself the same nationality or not does not negate the existence of a color caste system that is inherent to the cultures that claim that they want to align with foundational Black Americans, or have a Black and Brown coalition, if you will. But how is it that the Spanish language became a race? If you were to put your emotions aside and really think about it, what does a Mexican have in common with a Puerto Rican? What does a Puerto Rican have in common with a Venezuelan? What does a Venezuelan have in common with a Guatemalan, other than the fact that they share the same language and the same colonizer? So which is it that makes Latino a race? It is not a race, but according to Dr. Claud Anderson, the effort to manufacture a racial monolith called Latino began with a campaign pushing an ethnic identity called Hispanic. Before then, a white Cuban may take offense if you were to call him a Mexican. But fast forward, and now everyone is brown.
The issue was supposed to be focusing on dealing with things that have happened to Black folk. They changed it now. Let's deal with issues pertaining to everybody. Women, gays, handicapped, everything else. And when they did that, they destroyed affirmative action. Don't even waste your time even chasing affirmative action anymore. It's been destroyed. It was supposed to be helping Black folk. Now, what the other groups did, they said now that somebody put out a law to help Black folk, how do we become equal to Blacks? And that's when the Hispanics jumped up this thing called Hispanic, the concept. Before that, we didn't have anything called Hispanic. But they thought in the early 60s that Black folk might get something out of the civil rights movement. So what they did, they went to the table and came up with a whole term called Hispanic. They said, let's go all over the world and find everybody that speaks Spanish and pretend they're equal to Black folk. And let's pretend that the Spanish language has been handicapped, Jim Crowed, enslaved, hung, lynched, decapitated, and everything else, and therefore is entitled to be treated like a Black person. And they fabricated a new race called Hispanics.
So in an effort to gain political momentum, someone decided to group various cultures together based off of nothing but the fact that they spoke Spanish, or the fact that they were born in a Spanish-speaking country. See, doing this not only groups everyone together, which requires an innocent Guatemalan to answer for the crimes of the Mexican cartel, because both of them have been given the same identifying title, but it also allows for a white Cuban like Ricardo to co-opt Mexican history by labeling it Latino, even though white Latino Ricardo does not come from the lived experience of the Mexicans who were ostracized from white establishments, right along with Black people and dogs.
Just so you know, Mexico is extremely racist. So we have what are like Guatemalans, even to its own Mexicans. So you gotta remember, Mexico was dominated by the Spaniards. The only reason I look the way I look is because I'm 65% Spaniard. Yeah. Mexicans, like real Mexicans, or which is known as Mexica, not Mexico, Mexica, are 5'4", super dark with big noses and the heads pushed back. Aztecs and Mayans.
Like Indians.
Like Indians. Yes. Well, we're natives, right? Yeah. So we're blended. So the reality is in Mexico, till this day, if you are not light complected, somewhat tall, you're frowned upon to this day. And by the way, they're very open about it. It's not like it's a secret. It's not like it's a hidden. Yeah. You're short and you're dark, and we don't like you. So the fact that it's so funny to me that Mexicans cry racism when they practice more racism in Mexico than America practices on anybody else.
This was a specific people singled out from amongst the illusion of Latino solidarity. Their unwelcomeness emphatically posted on signs, right along with Negroes and dogs, as recent as the 20th century. This cultural conflation for the sake of forging a political voting bloc called Hispanic allows for any Spanish speaker to claim a brown-skinned Mexican's history of disenfranchisement in the United States, even though not all so-called Latinos went through what brown-skinned Mexicans endured. It's a political maneuver with ulterior motives that allows for a Colombian, John Leguizamo, to take credit for the creation of Mexico's Alamo. It's fake solidarity for the purposes of gain, discounting the fact that so many so-called Latinos have a history of getting offended if you call them a Mexican, and they go out of their way to differentiate themselves from those brown folks that were cast right alongside with Negroes and dogs.
The thing that is kind of annoying is when people who are of other Latin communities shit on Mexican people.
I have a question for Latinos, specifically non-Mexican Latinos. Why do you get offended when somebody asks or they assume that you're Mexican?
I feel offended that people call me Mexican and stuff because I'm not Mexican. I'm not Mexican.
This is the same weak foundation of solidarity that suggests that we form a coalition based off of blackness and black skin. You see, because America has a way of creating groups of people for political purposes by means of an illogical undertaking called the pigeonhole principle, also known as the pigeonholing fallacy. And pigeonholing is a process that attempts to classify a wide range of entities into a limited number of categories. This is how you get categories like people of color. This is how you get categories that throw foundational Black Americans in the same boat as a West Indian who just arrived yesterday. This is how you get categories like white, when it's convenient for individuals to be white, who suddenly turn brown or Latino when it comes to political gain. So without understanding the historical context of forced cultural amalgamation and short-lived coalitions that devolved into former allies becoming part of the oppressor class, which is what happened between foundational Black Americans and the Irish once upon a time, then you cannot, in your right mind, ever expect for a meaningful coalition to exist between foundational Black Americans, Latinos, or any other group for that matter. It takes selflessness to form a coalition that is expected to last after the common obstacle has been conquered. And Black Americans have been instrumental in coming to the rescue of everyone.
Every time America is in trouble, Black folk come to the rescue. We are the cavalry. Let me convince you of this. In every single war this country has ever fought, when they got in trouble and it appeared that they might not win this war, might not pull it out, who did they call? Black folk.
But the children of the ones whom Black America helped turn around and spit on the pages of history by exercising willful amnesia, competing against the children of those who have been the greatest ally of their predecessors, only to be brought back to reality when the storm shows up at their front door.
I always tell people the day the Latino, African American, Asian, and other communities realize that they share the same oppressor is the day we start winning. But the problem is our communities are divided. For Asian Americans and for African Americans, we probably have one of the worst relationships between any community.
Well, I bet you a lot of Asian Americans too don't, in my experience, don't even realize that if it wasn't for the civil rights movement, there would not be 22 million Asian Americans in this country.
Thank you. What I have been trying to teach the Asian community is like, friends, do you understand that your success, your prosperity, your civil rights that you enjoy right now was paid for with Black blood?
People think that having kids with another race, that brings solidarity somehow. No, it doesn't. The way that you fix this issue is by confronting the anti-Blackness in our particular culture. Now, I as a non-Black person, I identify the fact that there's anti-Blackness in Black people's culture too, but that's not for me to necessarily go into. That's for Black people to figure out and solve yourselves. But me as a Mexican person, we have to identify our problems. A lot of times we want to tell another race of people look, this is what you do. This is what you do. No, it starts with, look, this is what we do. We need to fix this because I know that it starts, as they say, at home.
As far as the unity between us browns and blacks, I think it could be a powerful thing.
We are public enemy number one because if we realize who we are on a united front, we can't be stopped.